If I had a stand, would my special attack be Invasion Sensation? And what would the weapon or the stand look like?
AJ Review.
Welcome back, JoJo fans, to Hey Jay's Journals JoJo's Great Adventure. I tried to put a lot of J's in there. Anyways, I've just completed the second part of part 3, which is called the something Crusaders. I forgot what it's called. But anyways, last time we journeyed across the world from Japan to Egypt as we learned that Dio was back, and now we met all the stands. We went through like a whole tarot card worth of enemies, and now we're in Egypt and we're looking for Dio, but now they switched to like Egyptian cards. Now I have to say right away, my energy for this part is going to be a bit lower, either because I've watched this over a longer period of time, so I've had time to like cool down and digest. And the second part is also I'm a little bit more now familiar of the JoJo formula, so it's not like what are they doing? Like the formula is now familiar to me. And the third is also, I think, as I was going through my notes, I was like, yeah, these were all cool, but nothing kind of like went whoa to me. And we're gonna talk about spoilers here. So if you haven't seen JoJo's JoJo Part 3, the second part, don't watch this because we're gonna be going heavy into spoilers. And I have to say right up front about how this ended, it left me going, how do I feel about this? Versus the ending of the others left me more like either I love this, I hate this, like a strong emotion. Here I was left with just a little conflicting emotions. So let's get into our journey. So now we get introduced to Iggy right off the bat, and I'm like, first of all, I'm more of a cat person, and Iggy is like just the worst dog you could ever ask for, and they do not start him off on a good introduction where he's just rude, he farts in people's faces, and he's just a dick. So I'm like, new character, but hate it. But dogs can have stand, that's kind of cool. Welcome aboard, Iggy, but as long as you don't get too much screen time, I'm good. And turns out he actually didn't get that much screen time until later. But then they did things, and I was like, actually, we're going to talk about that in a bit. And then we get our first character of this arc, which is Endul, who is, if I recall, a blind guy who has a stand that is water, and he goes through sound. Really cool fight. So the consistency of the quality of the fights in JoJo continue into this part where I love the fights, I love the creativity, and I was always very excited to see what the next fight was. Also in this part, I think they focused a lot more on 2 episodes per fight, which gave them a little bit more time to flesh out these fights. And it wasn't as ingrained as like, we always have to travel and like get to the next place. It's like, no, all these stand users are in the base, like in Cairo, I think they're in. And it's just like, it's not focusing so much on the geography to have like a cool fight. It's really on the stand's unique ability. And it was always that in the other ones, but the environment played more of a role, I felt. So, cool fight. I don't really have much more to add about that. I actually did like the fact that Iggy was used. I love the fact that Jotaro chucked Iggy. I was like, Jotaro. I gotta say, Jotaro, I warmed up more to him in this arc than in the last one. Like, yeah, he's this kind of quiet, dark dude, but he definitely like won me over with his charm in this arc. So I like him a lot more. From there, we went to Oingo and Boingo, the brothers who use the god of like drawings to predict what's going to happen. Basically, like the young kid, just the whole flavoring of these characters and their fight is like peak comedy for JoJo. And in hindsight, it really like balances off the arc because it gets really dark in the last part of this series. And this humor really balances things off. In fact, I think they front loaded the humor a little bit too much, and maybe they should have kept just a tad more for the ending, because the ending is so damn dark. But I love the whole idea of like everything is predetermined, everything happens, and you as the viewer, you're like, well, either they're going to be cheap and there's going to be a loophole, or like somehow this actually has to happen. And I love the fact that everything would happen, it just happened in such a weird way that you couldn't predict. And I loved the fact, and I love that they brought it back too with the Hall Horse and Boingo episode, and it was the same kind of formula where like you're like, oh my god, they're gonna kill Jotaro, how are they gonna explain this? And especially after you saw like the first story with Oingo and Boingo, it was just a pleasure. These were some of my favorite episodes because I'm a sucker for humor, and I just love this. Despite me being a little bit like, who are these characters? But like after I saw like how it all played, I was like, I love this. Then we got the Anubis sword, which was also cool. I loved how this one was not like so much a character, but was an inanimate object. Stand, I don't even know how to really describe it, but like basically whoever touches it became the weapon of the sword, which was just really unique. Like everything about the show is so unique, and I love that. But the fact that we got a sword user versus Polnareff, a sword user, and it was all about like outsmarting but with swords. Very cool fight there too. I'm not going to do rankings like I did last time with stands. That only attracts trouble. Maria with magnets, the magnetism power. I love that concept too. As someone who is an electrical engineering from education, I definitely don't practice it anymore. I thought it was cool how they actually introduced that concept around a stand user, and just seeing like more magnetism affecting JoJo and oh my goodness, Avdol. Just a fun episode. That one too was like a good combo of not like just enough comedy to be like haha, but also serious enough to be like, oh, this is a powerful user, how are they gonna get out of this? Like it was a nice balance. And that followed up with another one of my favorites, which was Alessi, the guy who has the shadow that can turn, like that reverses time for you. So like if you stand in a shadow too long, like you turn into a fetus or you disappear. Kind of dark. Like it was funny when he turned Polnareff into a kid, but then when he turned like the caretaker into a fetus, like, whoa, that got dark quick. Just a fun episode too. And I think, what was the whole thing about I'm remembering a scene of Polnareff in the bathtub and he used poo to do something. And I forget what he used poo for, but I'm like, this show has like no barriers, no limits. They're going to go wherever they need to. So yeah, Polnareff like took a dump in the bath, and that did something. I'm going to have to rewatch it to remember what it was. I just remember that being funny. The Gambler brothers, those were also great characters. Love the fact that they actually mirrored it with a traditional gambler playing like more of the old games, and the fact that like JoJo's like, I got this, like being the old man, like he knew the tricks and then he got outsmarted. And then they followed that up like a few episodes later with the younger brother who uses video games to gamble. And then it's like Jotaro who kind of steps up. He's like, I got this. And then you learn like he's never played video games before. And they still found a workaround. Just great characters. I love the fact that they didn't even care about Dio. They're not servants. They're just like, I'm just looking for like good competition, or looking for a good gambler, someone to have a good game with. Like their characters were really well designed. Love those two guys. The Falcon episode, I think, is like where things started getting dark. So now we got like a full episode around Iggy and Iggy fighting the Falcon. And this is kind of where I think it's the episode where Iggy is supposed to redeem himself in the eyes of the viewer. So if you didn't like him at this point, I think this is the episode where you're supposed to like root for him a bit. And it did do that for me to a certain extent, where I'm like, okay, he's getting a little bit more humble. And at the same time, like, oh my God, they're like killing or breaking a dog's foot. And I'm just like, again, this show has no limits. It just keeps going. By the end of it though, I mean, I hated the Falcon. I got a little bit more respect for Iggy, but at the same time, I'm like, I still don't like it too much, but like, yeah, you're cool. You can stay here. And then things got super dark. We're talking Vanilla Ice dark. Like the whole Vanilla Ice fight, that's when you realize this show is kind of serious. But after the whole Avdol like fake out, I was like, so, you know, Vanilla Ice kills Avdol right away. And the fact that they actually call the character Vanilla Ice, I'm just like, really? In the translation, they don't translate it like in the subtitles. They don't call him Vanilla Ice. I think they call him Cool Ice. I was like, is Vanilla Ice like a trademark? You can't write that. You can clearly hear Dio go Vanilla Ice, and it's just Cool Ice in the subtitles. It's weird. So yeah, Avdol gets killed proper. And like this time I knew, because the show tells you, like it shows the spirit, and then it actually says like Avdol deceased. And I'm just like, oh my God, they're killing off characters. And then Iggy, they killed off Iggy, and I was like, I'm mourning more Avdol, but like, why would they have killed him to bring him back to kill him again? That is so weird. And then Iggy gets killed off. I was like, again, they just like started to redeem him just to kill him off right away. Whoa, this show is getting back into like season 1 territory where they would just kill people off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. Who are they going to kill off next? Which is fantastic writing, by the way. Like, this is how you raise the stakes. And then like Polnareff, I was sure he was going to die too, because at this point, everyone's dying. Polnareff's on his last limb. And he makes it through, and then he's going up against Dio one-on-ones. I'm like, oh man, Polnareff's going to be like the one that dies in front of the JoJo's, and that's what's going to be like the trigger to make them go like crazy. But no, he lives. But then we get introduced to the Dio fight. And what I think struck me the most about Dio is the fact that he was built up over like 50 episodes. Like, this character has been built up for a long time. He's like Frieza level boss at this point. And I think what left me in shock is the fact that he was defeated so quickly. Like, it only took 3 or 4 episodes to defeat Dio. And I'm like, after all the other bosses, stand users took 2 to 3 episodes, like 3 at most. The fact that Dio was defeated in the same amount of time, I'm just like, was he that strong? Like, that seems too quick for all the buildup that we did to get here. So I think that's just being spoiled from I don't know if it's spoiled is the right word, but just the other animes kind of like maybe overextending their boss battles into something excessive. Like, Frieza's an excessive fight. But yeah, Dio just felt so short. But the stakes were definitely high there. Like, everybody was dying at this point. So we got Kakyoin. Oh man, I don't know if I pronounced that right. Probably not. I mean, he dies, but then he sacrifices himself to like get some info to, oh my God, is it Joseph or is it? It's not Joseph. We'll just say Old Man JoJo. I can't believe I'm this bad with names at this point. Like, I don't talk about it out loud very much, so I don't have to remember the names. It is, no, it is Joseph. No, is it Joseph? It's Joseph or I think the original is Jonathan and this guy's Joseph. Oh my God, I can't remember. Old Man JoJo. Then he dies. I was like, oh my God, are they actually going to kill the old guy? They killed the old guy. Like, you saw, like, there's no coming back from where they killed him. So I'm like, oh, they're going all in on this. Like, Jotaro is going to be like the end all be all. Like, it's all just passing it into Jotaro, which I assume is to build him up for like part 4. And then that fight was kind of cool. I think they wrote themselves into a bit of a corner because the fact that Dio did not kill Jotaro, even though he was clearly more powerful, is kind of BS. And then even more like when he killed the old JoJo and became like the complete Super Dio, like he could have and should have killed Jotaro at that point. But it's like, I think he had a little bit of plot armor. Like, he killed the old JoJo so quick, but then he was so hesitant to kill young JoJo, and then young JoJo's just like, I'm just gonna like hold my heart, which was a cool move, but it felt a little like, I'm like, are we really doing that? Versus all the other like key final fights really felt, I don't know, well written. Like, old JoJo, when he was young and he was fighting his like arch enemy, he couldn't have beaten him. Like, he was he just was overwhelmed, and in the end the villain got launched into space by a volcano. Like, young JoJo actually didn't end up killing him in the end, so that felt proper. But here, young Jotaro just ended up outsmarting him or outbidding him, and it was just kind of like dumb. But I do like the fact that Polnareff came in and like got his shot in, and like the fact that didn't kill him, like with the brain skew at first, that was kind of bullshit. Like, there was a bit of bullshit moments, but the biggest bullshit of all is the fact that old JoJo was revived in the final episode. And I don't know how I feel about that either, because like all the other characters stayed dead, and I knew that they would be dead, and I figured they really killed off old JoJo. And he's an old man. Like, there's no like old characters in stories, you usually kill them off to empower like the younger characters. And the fact that that is the one character they revived, I feel was so fan servicey and kind of a cop out. It's not committing to the story. Like, they left all the other cool characters dead, and that hurt, but they're reviving my favorite character just because he's loved. That just seems off. So yeah, I ended up with like mixed feelings about the last episode. It was still good. I liked the journey to get there, but I really think those last bits with Dio just felt off, felt weird. It's not what I was expecting. So now we're going to part 4. I don't know what part 4 is. From what I've seen from a few clips, I think we're going to Jotaro's child or maybe grandchild. I'm not sure, but we're going to a younger generation. It looks like the art style is changing a little bit. I have no idea what the plot premise is or anything. I haven't started the next part. But I do know that they announced a new part that's coming on Netflix later this year. So I'm really happy I started getting into this series so I can see what's happening. So yeah, let's see what the next part has to hold. A lot of new characters, new story, new plot. Really curious to see what they're going to do with this show. Now that the overarching villain's gone, the whole everything we've built up to this point, it's like Jotaro is the only one left, and now we got stands. Is that what they're going to work with? And what do you do with that? Where do you go from here? Really curious to see what they're going to do with that. So join me in the next JoJo Journal if you want to see my thoughts on that. And otherwise, I'll see you on that next video. And until then, keep it classy.
キラークイーンはすでにドアノブに触っている。